Welcome to Mediumship Matters, the podcast dedicated to spiritual growth, connection, and the reality of working with spirit. This season is proudly sponsored by Spirit Social, the brand new online community for the spiritually curious. It's a space where you can connect, share experiences, and access exclusive content without the noise of mainstream social media. With live events, expert insights, and a supportive community, Spirit Social is the place to deepen your journey. Take part in the free 6-month trial by visiting spiritsocial.co or downloading the app from the App Store now. Hello and welcome to Mediumship Matters with me, Hannah Macintyre. How are you doing? Today I have got another one of those long-awaited listener questions, which is even more hilarious because this one's from lovely Kim. And Kim is asking because it's spooky season and Halloween, and I am answering this question in April, and you guys will be listening to the answer to it from June. So you couldn't get less spooky season. But I'm going through the questions in order. I'm a Capricorn. I like it, and I will continue to do so. So Kim says, "Hi Hannah, a question for spooky season. I've just watched the Channel 4 documentary with Saran Jones about witch trials, which has re-sparked a question I've been wondering about for quite some time. When you listen to testimonies and alleged evidence used in witch trials, such as the Pendle witch trials or the Salem witch trials, the evidence that was used sounds so far-fetched that it's hard to understand how these statements could be taken seriously in a court of law or believed by all members of the community. The evidence includes things like allegations that people had shape-shifted from a person to a crow, that someone had been seen flying on a broomstick or levitating out of a window, that someone had been seen meeting with the devil, or about victims vomiting pins. My question is, how was it that people could believe these things, and to believe these things strongly enough to put the accused on trial? Some of those accused may have been practitioners of folk medicines and charms, but we also know that many victims were targeted for no other reason than being regarded as low status within their community or because of mass hysteria. And so with these victims, we know the accusations were totally fabricated. It blows my mind that such bizarre allegations can be taken seriously enough to condemn people in a court of law to imprisonment or death. Is it possible that during the Middle Ages, in a time when people lived closer to the land and the seasons than the vast majority of us do now, and when most people had strongly held faith in their religion, that people were closer to spirit and therefore more accepting of the notion of the supernatural, magic, and spirit intervention? And in this case, was their experience of the world more supernatural, magical, and spiritual than our modern day experience? And in that case, is it possible that some of these unexplainable things did actually happen? Is it possible that if a person believes strongly enough that they can hex a herd of cows, that they actually can? Before we understood the constraints of gravity, could we believe so strongly that a person could fly that they actually could? I know this sounds ridiculous by modern standards, but is that the whole point? Could science, technology, and modern life have created a barrier to some extent between us and spirit and magic? Did the lack of scientific discoveries and explanations for strange events in the Middle Ages make people believe more readily that there must be a supernatural cause for such things? And did that in turn mean more magical and supernatural things actually did happen, purely because there was the belief that these things were actually possible? We know belief and faith are really important in connecting with spirit, and that we can snip ourselves off individually if we don't surrender to spirit and flow. So then are we maybe, as a society or population, closing the door to spirit and magic through common and universal threads of disbelief and lack of faith? Or is this just all crazy talk? I'm so interested in your thoughts on this. Now, I want to preface my thoughts on this by saying I am in no way, shape or form an expert in the Salem witch trials, any form of witch trials. I haven't studied the history of it. And although that would probably make a better and more well-rounded podcast for you all, I haven't got time. It's true. So I'm going to answer without trying to be acknowledging that I don't know all of the facts that might be surrounding it, but I can give you my kind of take on it. And what's really interesting about this is, in the last week, my algorithm on Instagram has changed. I'm not sure why, but all of a sudden, I have started getting mediums talking about demons and attachments and horrible things. And the other day, one of them just caught my eye, and it was quite a definitive post. It was very much, these things are here to hurt you. You will be hurt by them. And it kind of really grabbed my attention. And so I went and looked at the post because I was like, oh yeah, what's going on here? What are we talking about? And then that medium who'd done that big splashy headline of spirit are going to get you, bad spirits are going to get you, demons are going to get you, that kind of thing. The answer to this was a candle. So, Kim, your question is, how could people believe these things in Middle Ages? My question is, how can people believe this poppycock now? And this just says something for human beings. If you look at what's happening in current society is being dumbed down. Questioning and thinking is no longer in fashion. What's in fashion is being riled up, whether it's politics, whether it's other people's, parenting. The abuse people get for bottle feeding, for saying they breastfed, for saying they had a natural birth, for having a birth with an epidural, and everything in between. The rage people feel and the right that people have to feel to share that rather than scrolling on is kind of fascinating to me, let alone when you're telling people that everything that's gone wrong in their lives can be down to a demon, an attachment, or in the case of the witch trials, Hetty from In the Village, who was always a bit funky. And let's just add into this, the Middle Ages, people are not living a long life. People are very much under the fear of religion. Life is hard, life is tough. There's nothing to look forward to except for God's grace once you're dead. So you want to be doing whatever you can to earn that grace. Otherwise, there's zero hope. There's zero hope. And so on and so forth. I don't really have an answer for you, Kim, except to say, I think when I believed in demons and attachments and stuff like that, life was easier. Whether we like that or not, it's true. It was easier. If something went wrong, it wasn't that I needed to work harder for it, or it wasn't that it wasn't meant for me. It was that a hex that somebody else had upon me because they were jealous had stopped me from being able to have it. And going back to cows being hexed, this is one of the most interesting things that Spirit have taught me. So when I believed in hexes, I would see them and they would always look like a dial, a bit like when you see the horoscope dial. It would look a bit like that, but it would move. Maybe like something from Doctor Strange, pre-Doctor Strange, can I just say? I didn't steal it from him. And when we would remove them, it would be like turning it to sort of click it into place, a bit like a puzzle. I hope I'm making sense here. And you would pull them out of people. Now, I now know that wasn't a hex, although it was a hex. And here's the interesting thing. Because if you believe that someone has hexed you, whether they have or not is irrelevant. You will experience the results of what you feel a hex will give to you. Because we energetically create our experience. Cows, they don't give a shit if you've hexed them. They don't understand the concept. So they're just living their life anyway. If they all die from some disgusting disease, because let's be honest, the Middle Ages aren't known for their hygiene. But it's nothing to do with a hex. But you can see how that would be easy to blame. When you don't understand bacteria. I mean, imagine trying to explain bacteria to a Middle Ages person, not a middle-aged person. I can understand the concept of bacteria. A Middle Ages person, an invisible thing that can make you ill, that can be passed. Like, that is magic. That sounds like witchcraft. And so it's a really interesting, complicated thing. So just to go back to hexes, as soon as spirit managed to undo the belief system in me that had been put in me, that I had allowed and I had engaged with and I had built up, once spirit managed to get rid of that, I stopped feeling that attack energy. I started working really sexy, I know, but I used to cover my aura in Teflon. You know the adverts with the frying pan, you tip it to one side and you don't even need oil and the fried egg just falls out with a plop. Amazing. And my energy was like that. That's the intention I set, because no one could stick anything to me that I didn't allow them to. And so this is the thing about hexes. No one can do anything to your energy that you don't let them. I know that there are people that would love my downfall because I'm a bit inflammatory and I don't toe the line and this, that and the other. There's people who think I'm a dick and don't send me bad vibes. There's people that send me bad vibes. They have no power over me because I don't let them have any power over me. But when I believed in that stuff, I gave it a lot of power. I gave it a lot of control over my life. And that I kind of find fascinating. I know, a slight decoff what you were saying. Now, here's another interesting thing. The more in nature I am, the more connected to spirit I feel. So yes, in a certain way, I do believe that you're right, that when we were connected to the seasons and the land and we were working in the land, there was more of a natural magic. And I think we're losing that magic, being tied to devices all the time. And that was one of the big inspirations for me doing Spirit Social, was that I wanted mediums to be able to step away from their devices and be. Because the trees had stopped talking to me. And it wasn't that the trees had stopped talking, it was that I'd stopped listening, because all I was thinking about all the time was content and pleasing a computer algorithm. And I'd forgotten somewhere along that about pleasing myself and pleasing spirit. So I do think there probably was more magic. When I was a teenager and we were all obsessed with the craft, obsessed with it, we used to do light as a feather, stiff as a board. And that bad boy would work. You would have people floating on the tops of your fingers. So yeah, I don't know about levitating, but potentially we believed these things were possible. And so they were. They did happen. Now, whenever I try and do it, there's a little bit of me that is like, how much do they weigh? Is this going to happen? Blah, blah, blah. And it kind of gets in the way. But when you were a teenager, you just went, let's try some witchcraft. We've watched The Craft and we did it and it worked. I don't know. I don't know how people could believe these things. I don't know how people could do those things, but there are plenty of things happening in the current world that I can't believe people do. And I can't believe that people would do. And it's easy to look at the atrocities of the witch trials because there were atrocities, but there are atrocities now. I mean, really, I know I'm going off on one here, but you probably knew you would set me off on one with this question. I can't believe that we're fighting over bits of land. Like, I just, we're fighting over invisible money. We're not, it's just on a computer. You can't touch it. You're not like Scrooge McDuck. We're fighting over invisible things, invisible barriers, invisible dividers between countries. People are dying for these things. And I know that's a really simplistic way of looking at it. But really, it's easy to look at the Middle Ages and go, oh my God, how did they live like that? And I know you weren't doing that, Kim, I'm just saying. But I don't feel like we've moved on an awful lot. We're aware of bacteria now. And this leads me, and I hope I've never mentioned this on the podcast before, but the story I'm absolutely obsessed with about the guy who noticed years and years and years ago. In fact, I'm going to pause and I'm going to get his name and proper facts. Hang on. If you ever wondered if I just do these podcasts on the hop, this is the proof. I absolutely do. So I want to talk about, now I'm probably going to muller his name and I do apologise, Ignaz Semmelweis, from 1846, a Hungarian doctor. Now, he noticed a link between women getting infections and dying and newborns getting infections and dying, if the doctor that delivered the baby had previously done an autopsy or been with the corpses. So there was a morgue hospital next to the birthing hospital, and he noticed that doctors who had just done something on a body, they were more likely to kill somebody who was giving birth. And he tried to get people to wash their hands before it was known to wash hands. And he was ridiculed for it. And he was ridiculed so badly and ousted by his colleagues that he ended up going insane and going into a mental institution. And I find that's a story that I think about a lot, because all of the people that say that us spiritual people are nuts and stuff like that, you can completely understand why they would feel like that. And that's absolutely they're allowed to feel like that. Imagine what it was like for him, washing his hands in chlorinated water, doing the best thing, and people thinking he was nuts. And that really isn't that long ago. 1846 is not that long ago. Imagine giving birth and being touched by somebody who's just been cutting open a rotting corpse that died of a disease. Sorry, this has taken a really dark turn, I'm aware. But I find the whole thing fascinating because the germs, the bacteria were not visible. So everyone said he was a nutter. And it blows my mind, Kim. I know you're talking about your mind being blown. That blows my mind. And I think this is the thing. Us humans, we're really poor at being open to new ideas. We're just so bad at it. I think that's why spirituality's not really progressed the way it should have, because nobody's there pushing, changing, experimenting, trying. Everybody is just doing it the way it's always been done. And it's a real shame that we're not braver. And it's a real shame that people who are brave end up in institutions. So yes, I think that people in the Middle Ages were more believing in magic. I've just recently been to the Stone Circle in Avebury with Sue, and we know those stones, like the other big stones in Somerset. You'll all be shouting it at the thing. You know what I mean. Those stones have been in the earth. I think the Avebury one's longer ago. But this, you've got this flat land with these massive skies. The skies are kind of mind-blowing for somebody that lives in a hilly area where the sky is always broken up. To have just this kind of 180 of sky all above you and around you. And you can understand why people seeing the sun would have thought it was a god. And in certain ways, the sun is a god. We have no life without it. And all of that, you can understand that pull, that thread within us all, I think, unless you've really pushed away from it, to discuss and think about something more, to think about our mortality, to wonder if we're a biological accident or there's something here by design, the very existential nature of humans. But you take that back to Middle Ages where people didn't have the language for it. They're very scared of the church. Men have got a lot of power. I would say they've got slightly less now, but still a lot of power. There was this kind of indoctrination. Did that change their impact, their experience? Probably, yeah. And if your belief system creates your reality, then goodness knows what those people were seeing. And this is everything I comes back to when I believed in demons, I saw demons. Now I no longer believe in demons. I no longer see demons. So if you believe that the devil was there and you believe that witches were possible, that is what you see. That is what you get. And I think the question about the barrier that technology is creating is a very worthwhile debate. And I think the tech is spiritual. I think it's been sent to be used with integrity, to free us up, to give us space to sit in the sun and watch the bees buzzing between flowers, because you can't get closer to God than that, in my opinion. I cannot get closer to spirit than the robin that hops around my garden looking at me. I can't. But when you're slave to the algorithm and you're in that space where you lose yourself because of it, you lose your connection to that energy. And I see it happening increasingly with really great mediums that I know are really aligned and wonderful people, because they've seen that the drama and the big headlines and my God, it's probably just me, but B-roll footage, somebody making a cup of tea with some bump written over the screen while they smirk into a camera with some music playing, actually makes me want to heave. It's so repulsive to me. And the problem with that is we're all being told we should do it, and we're all gauging success on other people's stuff and that they should be doing it. And we're losing our way. We're losing the thread to spirit that makes us behave in aligned ways, that makes us create and advance. We're in this quagmire. So, yeah, how could they believe those things in the Middle Ages? But how can you sleep at night if you're doing Facebook posts and Instagram reels to scare people to get more followers? And this is a little plea. If you honestly believe in demons, that's fine. That's not a problem. Your reality is different to my reality. That's how it goes. But do you honestly believe that paying 40 quid for a candle and lighting it is all it takes to get rid of one? If you believe in them, can't it just blow it out? So yeah, Kim, this has ended up being one of my atypical ranty podcasts. Which I'm hopefully you're all used to by now. But things to think about. Have you got a thought on this, anybody? Would anybody like to wade in? Kim's already waited the best part of 8 months for a response. She'd love to hear your take on it. So wade in, get involved, let us know what you think. I would love to hear from you as soon as possible, because then we can get it on season 7. I am trying to catch up, trying to get ahead of myself. So wade in with your thoughts, your opinions. Email me at podcast@hannahmedium.co.uk. But that's my take on it, and I hope that was worth waiting for, Kim. Thank you for your question. I will see you all on the next episode, where hopefully I'll have taken a chill pill, but let's be honest, it's not likely, is it? I'll see you all soon.